We're going to start this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast with a quote.
No.
No.
You promised me you wouldn't.
Sent Friday at 9:26 p.m. You did a great job, brother. From Ryan Hanna. To which I, Brad Crisco, responded, thanks. It was alright for a first try. And like a fourth take. And he's like, you're a natural. And then I responded, quoting that on the next episode. And he's like, no, wait. He tried giving me a compliment. And he did, successfully. It was a very nice compliment, and I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart, completely forgetting that it was going to absolutely backfire on you in this episode.
It was not meant for public consumption.
Hey, you did go to Twitter afterwards and say basically the same thing.
I have a street cred to keep up. I have a reputation, sir. Lots of people know about you, and they know that I'm supposed to hate you. You worthless friend. This is why I never do nice things for you.
I was just trying to market the podcast here, sir.
You did a great job. If you guys don't know what we're talking about, Brad Crisco, my fellow host who this is Ryan Hanna speaking, and the person you heard before who's reading up the text was Brad Crisco, for those of you who have a hard time.
I did quote us with our names in there.
I know, yeah. I do think we sound different, but I guess we know that we're different.
I think I figured it out because we both have, like, deepish voices, so if you're listening through like a car radio, it probably wouldn't come through crystal clear.
100%. Anyhow, Brad was on Steve Dangle's, one of his most recent LFRs, the videos that he does after the Leafs games. Detroit won, of course, and we'll get to that, and Brad Crisco was featured, and he did a great job. Go check it out. You were talking about the views on it because you weren't sure how many people watch it.
Yeah, like, because I've watched Steve's videos, but I generally watch it on my, like, I have YouTube connected to my TV, so when you're watching it on TV, you don't see any of the stats or any of the videos, so I just assumed that he's still getting the same few thousand views per video that he's been getting for the last 8 years, because, you know, growth isn't a thing, and the fact he's on Sportsnet isn't a thing. And then I'm like, yeah, let's just see how the video's doing this morning, and it was, like, close to 30,000, and I'm like, oh boy, I'm glad I wasn't thinking about that while I was recording.
Yeah. That was, that would have made you a lot more nervous. I like the setup that you had when I came down here today.
Oh, yeah.
You had, like, this, I don't even know what that was.
It's like a folding table, like a
folding table on
TV
top
tray.
of
Another folding table.
Another folding table that is also our official, you know, podcast desk that holds all of our equipment. Up, and so it wouldn't look like that you were recording in an unfinished basement, and it was pretty successful.
Yeah, because I have like this 10 square foot section of the wall where everything's covered, so I had to use that.
Yeah. The background, you had the Winged Wheel Podcast flag, which was fantastic. Yeah, it was a good thing.
It was funny too because generally, most people like to think they're funny by nature, and I generally tend to fall into that category. And then as soon as I set the camera up, got my little setup here, and I'm like, okay, let's do this, record. Immediately just remembered I am the least funny person on the face of this earth. I have no idea what to say right now.
It's hard to even comprehend that, knowing how much you talk.
And it was funny too, because after, like, you know, you watch your takes to figure out, you know, what works, what's the best one, and like, I can't, for anybody who's listening to this podcast, I don't listen to our podcast back. I can't.
No.
I can't listen to myself. I can't watch myself.
Voice.
I hate it. So I was like trying to go through the takes of the videos I was doing, and I just text Steve, and I'm like, how the hell do you edit these? I hate watching myself. He's like, it's convenient. I hate myself. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. So just a good amount of self-loathing will get you through it.
It does lead to better quality control because you're going through. It's like, you see how finicky I am when we're like editing audio. You're like, oh, that worked out okay, and I'm in there like zooming in on the track and like splicing in like breaths from other parts. But yeah, no, I never listen back, and I think our voices are atrocious to listen to.
And yet somehow the podcast listens keep going up.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about.
This episode might change that.
This is the Winged Wheel Podcast. Today we're going to talk about Detroit's 2 games since our last episode, which was
Thursday before... No, it was Wednesday. It was Wednesday? Sometime before the Leaf game last week.
It was, yeah. And there was a Leafs game, there was an Islanders game. More of the rough and tumble wings that we've been seeing. We're going to talk about more news to come out of the Seattle expansion. And no, not just the concept of the Rain City Bitch Pigeons jersey, which is now a leading contender.
I am so upset that I have already purchased jerseys for my men's league team. If not, I would have done those up in a heartbeat.
There is no... I would sooner see that than the Las Vegas Flamingos, which is, you know, for anyone who's been listening, knows that was my number one choice for the Vegas expansion. And then we'll talk about... we're going to dive back into some things that Ken Holland said, which will definitely have a level-headed and rational response. We got our first... Not our first, but it was like the most directed hate tweet that we've seen so far. Like, not everyone loves the show. And anytime you're trying to reach a wider audience, it becomes more and more common for people to, you know, criticize you. And that's fair. That's actually what we look for when we try to improve the show. But someone tagged me on Twitter, like, at Ryan Hanna WWP, said, finally can put a face to the name of that awful podcast that I listened to recently, 0 out of 10. The guy went out of his way to find me to see what I look like so he could tell me that he hated the podcast. 0 out of 10 seemed a bit egregious. I could understand like a 2 or a 3.
See, I probably avoided that because I changed my profile picture and he was unwilling to yell at a grown man and his tiny daughter.
His tiny daughter. That's actually throwing me off that you changed your picture.
I know, because I've only ever changed my profile picture on Twitter like twice in the 8 years I've been on there, but I'm like, it's time for a change. I like that picture better anyway, so...
I should probably change mine. That's a 2-year-old picture of me.
Yeah. And in my picture, there is a 2-year-old.
Huh. When I took that picture, that 2-year-old didn't exist.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no. It was the November before she was born.
So that would have been November 2015?
Yeah, something like that. I think. I don't know.
Something
Time
like that.
all melts
She would have existed. She would have just been still inside another person.
Gross, Brad.
I like phrasing things in gross ways.
The Red Wings had a huge game against the Leafs in which they blew a 4-1 lead, and were the memes coming. But Dylan Larkin iced it in a way that made even the biggest Wings critics come back and say, "All right, that was pretty sweet."
That's like his move now. He stole it from Nyquist.
He did.
Nyquist stopped doing the backhand 5-hole, so Larkin's like, "All right, I'll take it."
Yeah.
Claimed.
It was like, it's the quick backhand 5-hole. It's the halfway across on the backhand and tuck it as the goalie's transitioning. It's actually incredibly smart, not overly complicated, but it's not easy to execute.
Oh yeah, that move it's all timing.
Yeah, 100%.
Because when you go forehand to backhand, there's going to be a hole between the legs no matter what you do, because the goalie can't move laterally without opening something up there. And even with the best stick positioning, there's still a bit of room there.
There's a gap.
It's just you have to hit it at the right moment in the right spot. So it's such a tricky timing play, and Larkin's got that one down now. The little bicycle kick before helps too.
It was pretty sweet. The 5-4 win over Toronto was great. We live in the middle of Leafs country, and it just...
It's satisfying.
It's so satisfying.
It got me on an LFR.
Yeah, it did.
So let me be clear here. So we talked about how good Dylan Larkin was, and you know, the true leader that he's turning into, yada yada yada. There's my positive for the episode. That's not a game the Red Wings should celebrate.
No.
No, the Red Wings had absolutely zero business winning that game. Outside of the Larkin goal, you could almost say all of the Red Wings' other 4 goals were just a result of poor goaltending. You know, Garrett Sparks did not have a strong game.
No, he did not.
Like, the Mike Green one definitely shouldn't have went in. The Jonathan Ericsson one, it didn't look like Sparks was screened, so I assume he would get it. The Nyquist goal, he was sitting so far back in his net, I could have picked that quarter from there. And what was the 4th goal?
It went Jonathan Ericsson, Luke Glendening, Gustav Nyquist, and Mike Green.
Yeah, okay, I won't blame Sparks on the Glendening one. Toronto just kind of blew coverage on that one.
If the Detroit Red Wings' first 2 goals of the night are Jonathan Ericsson and Luke Glendening, your goalie's having a bad game.
And you better damn well win that game, because that's not ever going to happen. And again, hey, the NHL's a funny league. Sometimes goalies have off nights and you have to capitalize, and the Red Wings blew a 4-1 lead in the 3rd damn period. I don't care how good Toronto is. You're an NHL team. You do not blow a 3-goal lead in the 3rd period.
No.
You don't. It's inexcusable, and the only reason that Red Wings fans weren't melting down after that game is because Nyquist and Larkin hooked up for a very nice goal. Again, as beautiful as that play was, the whole thing that started that play was a very uncharacteristic turnover from John Tavares.
Mm-hmm.
Detroit did not earn that game in any sense of the word. And it's funny too, everything that I tweeted after that game, I just had one thing, because Red Wings fans were over the moon because, and I was super happy too, don't get me wrong. I'm never like, I'm upset the Red Wings won. They beat the Leafs. I was thrilled. But I also understood they didn't deserve that. But also, in the midst of Red Wings fan euphoria, I had to remind them that the shift before Larkin scored, Jeff Blashill actually put Luke Glendening and Justin Abdelkader on the ice at the same time in overtime, and it led to a Patrick Marleau breakaway.
Like,
it's inexcusable.
Again, he keeps doing it.
He didn't for a while. I'll give him that. Like, I'm not...
I know, but just the fact that he came back to that.
No, I know. I don't ever want to be the guy who just dumps on Blashill for the sake of dumping on Blashill. Like, I don't want people listening to this to think I don't like Jeff Blashill. I dislike him as a coach.
I was gonna say, like,
I dislike how
this is personal.
So I shouldn't even say as a coach. I dislike how he coaches. He seems like a nice guy. His arrogant faces drive me nuts. But hey, sometimes people just have stupid faces. It's fine. I can relate.
I was gonna say.
But it's just he does. There's a thread on Reddit this week. The title of it was, "Is Jeff Blashill actually a good coach?" And then the main theory was, he's just had a bad team for 4 years. Now that some guys are performing well, this is what he's like. No. Get that thought right out of your head. Again, I go look at Dom Lucian's article on The Athletic about where he quantified breakout successes. We talked about this on this podcast before, but I want to reiterate this. The Red Wings are not only dead last in the league in successful breakouts, they're dead last by a lot, and based on their number, almost historically bad since people started tracking this data. That's coaching. You can have... I understand that Dennis Cholowski is the only capable... Dennis Cholowski and Mike Green are the only capable puck movers on this blue line. But even Mike Green's success rate this year is atrocious. When you have a guy who's as gifted a puck mover as Mike Green, who's having that big of a failure rate on breakouts, I'm sorry, it's the system.
100% through. Like, that's something that Mike Green... Like, if you have a player whose talents fall in categories A, B, and C, and not D and E, which are very important, and then his A, B, and C are falling short, that is a coaching failure. Danny DeKeyser losing his defensive play, his positioning, and his good decision making for long periods of time, like, he's never going to be back at that form. To me, that is the fault of the coaching and the systems. This team has not... It is... There's this euphoria, and we talked about this last episode or the episode prior, I can't remember, where everyone, the fans and viewers and critics and analysts and whoever, are getting too high on the Red Wings because they take the smallest success as a huge success when really it's just relatively better than what they have seen, which is utter garbage.
When the bar is so low.
It's so low. It's like it's not great. It's not fantastic. Yes, there are small virtues and wins, like, you know, Larkin taking a step forward, Cholowski being great development, like that. And that's how we say, like, if you're going to be a fan of a bad team, you have to hang on to those things and enjoy them, because that's what will give you, like, life and not make you miserable watching hockey. It'll keep your passion for the game. But in all, you have to make sure that you don't let that sink in too deep. Like, you can't let that take root in what you think this team actually is, because then you're going to have a general manager thinking that maybe they shouldn't be sellers at the deadline, when really the team is so bad, it looks like an outlier on the charts. Like, and this isn't just about numbers. Like Brad said, no team should let when I was watching the notifications roll in, so I had to go back and watch the game after, actually. I was only catching pieces of it, and I was watching notifications roll in. Every Toronto goal in the third period did not surprise me. It's not like, oh, 4-2 now. Oh, 4-3. Oh my God. Oh, 4. No, I was expecting it, because that is what it's like to watch this team try to play defense. Jeff Blashill is by no means the worst coach in human history. I do think that he fits firmly into the mold of there's too much apologism happening around this guy. Too much has fallen short under his tenure. He's not a good coach.
People are saying, well, Detroit's exceeding their expectations. Their projections this season were literally to be the worst or second worst team in the league. So if they were anything but the worst team in the league, It's better than expected. So again, we're judging him based on a bar that was set impossibly low. The Red Wings blew a 3-goal lead in the third period against the Leafs, and then 2 nights later blew a 2-goal lead against the Islanders, another team who are objectively terrible. And again, I actually had someone ask me a great question on Twitter last week. They're like, "Hey Brad, I hear you quoting these metrics all the time that, Detroit, despite their winning a bunch of games, everything says they're bad. Which metrics are they?" And I didn't mean to sound like an asshole answering them, but the answer was literally all of them.
Yeah.
You could take Corsi, Fenwick, expected goals for, expected goals against,
wins above replacement, all of them.
Anything. Pick any advanced metric. The Red Wings are bottom 5 in the league. They're bad, and you want to, and then you go look at all the goaltending charts, and you immediately see why Detroit's where they are. It's because the Red Wings goalies are playing out of their minds this year.
This is going to lead into a small. This isn't a Mike Milbury minute. Like I'm not going to tear into this, but I'm very passionate about not making the same mistakes that you did in the past, especially at such a critical juncture in trying to rebuild this team. Last year...
Let's get to the other point before we get to that.
Sure.
Because that'll be a bigger conversation. Because the whole reason I wanted to bring up Blashill, and I wanted to bring up how people are starting to apologize for him, is I wanted to get to the next point.
Yep.
Fans are starting to get very, very happy that the Red Wings are going to the old school rough and tumble hockey. Luke Witkowski's in the lineup every night, and a lot of people seem to like that. Dylan Larkin fighting last game, a lot of people seem to like that. Cronwalling people again, which I am actually pro.
Oh yeah, that's fantastic.
I'm pro that. But the Red Wings are this team now. They're the rough team, the grinders, the fighters. Okay, if anybody thinks this is how you win hockey games in 2018 in the NHL, you haven't been watching hockey for the last 10 years. This does not win you hockey anymore. And people were saying, and the thing I saw that was just dumbfounding to me was, oh, this is like the old school Red Wings. We're going back to the way it was, and that's why we're going to be good. What, the 1980s? When the team's nickname was the Dead Wings? The Red Wings had, sure, they had Probert and McCarty and Koster in the 90s. But the Red Wings' reputation, if everybody has forgotten in the 90s, is they were one of the most skilled teams in the NHL. They invented the puck possession style. They invented a whole lot of offensive schemes that teams use now. Yes, they had fighters, but that was the 90s. Every single team in the NHL had fighters. Detroit actually had less than most teams do. And even the fighters they had, Probert and McCarty and whoever, could contribute. They weren't just one-trick ponies, and they weren't out there just looking for the fight. This is not something that should be encouraged. Don't get me wrong, there is something to be said about the camaraderie going on in the Red Wings dressing room that everybody's willing to step up for everybody. But if you don't see a fundamental flaw in Nicholas Cronwall getting run and the guy sticking up for him is Dylan Larkin in a fight, wow, that's not good on any level. If we have, how many times have we seen Justin Abdelkader be the guy to step in for that fight this year? I don't remember it. He's the guy to do that. Luke Witkowski, he's only had to answer the bells for hits he's thrown. Mantha's out 4 to 6 weeks for the exact same reason, for the exact same situation that Larkin had on Saturday night. How would fans have reacted if Larkin broke his hand in that fight? Losing Mantha was bad enough. Losing Larkin for the rest of the season, this team would barely be watchable.
No, someone was talking to me recently. It was Adam actually who was texting me recently, talking about how like the Wings keep winning games. I'm like, it's one goalie drought or Larkin injury away from all crashing down. And I would like to make a point. Brad's not advocating here for fighters, like the role of the grinder, the fighter, or like the designated hit guy to be like he's not saying every team needs a John Scott. What he's saying is that this team has players who, if nothing else, should be the ones to step up, and not the superstars or the stars on which this very team rests. On their shoulders this team lays. They can't be the ones to go out and throw the punches. It's not that Larkin's doing it because no one else will. Larkin plays with a lot of fire. We've seen his just ferocity that he's brought to the game this year alone has just been a huge step in that direction for him, and he's playing with the passion of a guy who's pissed off losing. And he's willed this team to a lot of wins, him and Jimmy Howard both. But you're right, it can't be him. It can't be him. It should not be him. Just an abdicator gets in these scrums that lead to fights. Luke Witkowski lays a hit that turns to a fight. It should never have gone to the point where Larkin is the first one to the guy who ran Cronwall.
And here's the thing.
And that's one example, but it's just like a representation of the entire issue.
And here's the thing: was Larkin the closest guy proximity? Sure, that's fine. I understand that. But if I'm just Blashill, I'm yelling at him on the bench. If I see you drop one glove this whole season, I'm gonna bench you for the rest of the period because I'm not risking missing you for 4 to 6 weeks. It's a 60-minute hockey game. I think it was the middle of the second period when this happened. Cool. Take a number. You have 30 more minutes left in the game to send Witkowski or Ablocator to settle the score, to drop the gloves.
Yeah.
If most players, not all, but most players will answer the bell whenever you ring it. It's fine. If Larkin wants to get in there, throw a couple cross checks, let him know he's there, fine. By all means, don't back down, don't let him completely off the hook, but this is stupid. A guy like Witkowski shouldn't even be dressed in the NHL because he can't contribute as a player. But again, we're paying. Again, there's just certain guys that I seem to pick on all the time. We're paying Justin Ablocator $30 million because of his character and his intangibles, because it sure as hell isn't because of his skill as a hockey player.
Hey man,
let him earn the contract in whatever way we can. This is stupid. This whole thing that the Red Wings have become is stupid. This is what the LA Kings tried to do, and now they're the worst team in the NHL. They wanted to be big, tough, slow. They had skill players, don't get me wrong, but that was their team motto. They're dead last in the entire NHL. This doesn't work. Unless, of course, your team tanked, then this is the best case scenario for you.
Moving forward, should these guys lose this passion or sense of camaraderie or like developing the locker room, like the foundation of this team moving forward, should they push that to the side? No. Just lay off a little bit. And it's not a popular opinion. I get downvoted on Reddit quite often. Like the Twitter replies are always like this is very reminiscent of old school hockey, and I kind of love it. It's fun, and it's as a fan, it's like an intimate viewing experience, and you feel connected to the team, and you feel good about the team. It's all very like Rudy. It's awesome. Just does not translate to success in the modern game. It can still be there. You can still have a captain in Dylan Larkin who will not be afraid to drop the gloves or let a guy know that it wasn't okay to run his veteran defenseman. But it should not be the expectation, and it should not be the norm. We've seen it's been like a very concentrated dose of this like old school rough and tumble hockey, and it just does not lead to, they're playing with fire essentially. That Larkin injury is not too far away if he keeps getting it like this.
Yeah, and I'm not an anti-fighting guy, and I'm not even an anti-Larkin fighting guy.
No, same.
Yeah.
Same.
But Larkin should be fighting if a guy runs him in the corner, like when Yannick Weber threw that shot on him against Nashville a couple of years ago. Larkin was like, "Ow, that hurt." Got up, got in his face, and they threw it up. I'm good with those. Like, those are going to happen.
He beat the hell out of him.
Again, LeCavalier, 04 Cup Finals, one of the best Cup Finals moments ever. But it's got to be, like, true heat of the moment. I'm doing this because I'm angry.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be the guy. The stars can't be the guys stepping in for other guys.
No.
It's just so frustrating. And again, I fear with the current regime of the Red Wings, this is going to be the new norm. And, hey, it might get us Jack Hughes and Alexis Lafreniere, so it might not be the worst thing ever. But, let's not do that if we can.
If it ends up being Alexis Lafreniere, oh my goodness! If you want to know what kind of player he is, I sometimes describe players as freaks and they just do what they want. Like Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews fit in that mold for me. Lafreniere gets on the ice and just does what he wants. That was a little small aside. Something I want to talk about. Actually, one other small point. Is it a very real fact that teams are going to keep playing their backups against Detroit, which is going to artificially inflate our score, the team's scoring and wins?
Yes, absolutely, because Detroit's one of the worst offensive teams in the league this year by goals for. So
Garrett Sparks lost that game for Toronto.
I think someone was saying that was the first time in a year and a half Frederik Andersen didn't play a game, not counting injuries, where Toronto wasn't playing a back-to-back.
And it was very intentionally because they were playing a terrible Detroit team.
Yeah.
That's it's not like there's nothing to be done about it. What are you supposed to do? Complain that you have a better chance at winning? No, of course not. And you still see goalies come on and have a heater or a great game, like just one off. But It's not the first time this season where Detroit's put a few goals in that otherwise wouldn't have gone in on a starting NHL goaltender.
Yeah.
And so it might bump them up the standings a little bit.
To be fair, though, all the other teams around Detroit in the standings are getting the same treatment.
The same treatment, yeah, that's true. Last year, you might remember me calling for Mike Green to be traded as soon as possible, as early as October, November, because he had a great start to the season, and it's a trend for Mike Green. He'll have a fantastic start to the season, and he just tapers off. He's not young anymore. He's not playing on a high offensive team, or a high-powered offensive team like he did in Washington. By no means were those stats sustainable, and so I thought, trade him while his value is the highest. Of course, that didn't happen. It came down to the trade deadline, and about a week and a half or 2 weeks before, he took an innocuous hit into the boards and broke two vertebrae or whatever the hell it was. Couldn't be traded, not even for a seventh. Yes, that was a freak accident. Yes, there's only so much blame to be laid. I personally think that the team erred in doing so, and sure, I don't know what offers were on the table, but I'm sorry, if you're trading what was supposed to be the hottest defensive commodity on the market that year at the trade deadline, you could have found something for him. Would it have been too panicky to trade him early? Maybe, but hindsight's 20/20. Yeah, look at the position they ended up in. All that aside, I'm not bringing this up to complain about not getting anything from Mike Green. Jimmy Howard is doing two things. One, playing lights out hockey for Detroit, winning them games. Two, accelerating his trade value, of which he had none this time last year or even the year before. Trade him as soon as possible. As soon as possible. Look at the return you might get for him. There's a very real chance a team might give up a high pick for him. There's a very real chance, like we mentioned on previous podcasts, that he could be packaged. Detroit takes a bad contract on the way back, and you get an amazing asset out of it. Trade him as soon as possible. Don't wait for his play, because his level of play is not sustainable. Playing behind the defense he is, it's just not. He's not going to keep up those numbers. Trade him before, like you mentioned, another goalie, another team's goalie, starts playing extremely well, or another team's goalie starts playing extremely poorly. There's so many factors of volatility here that could lead to the market being dry. The goalie market is never hopping. It is never good to be a seller on the goalie market, except for right now. Trade him yesterday. I love Jimmy Howard. I love him as a Red Wings fan. I think he's so underappreciated. He's dragged this team to the playoffs on multiple occasions. He doesn't deserve the treatment he gets. He doesn't deserve the barrage of shots he faces every game. I would like to see him back in the winged wheel, but as of this moment, his value as a trade asset exceeds his value to the team and what he's doing right now. If you're anti-tank, fine, that's great. I don't think a true tank, the word tank describes intentionally losing, and I don't think anyone's in favor of that. But in a year where you really should be maximizing the value of your first round pick, having a goalie scrape out wins for you when otherwise your team would have lost isn't always the best thing in a grand scheme of things. Yes, always be happy for a Red Wings win, but sometimes it's a forest through the trees moment. That's my mini rant. I know it probably won't happen. You mentioned Howard likely won't get traded anytime soon, if at all.
If at all, no. That's not Ken Holland's style. If Howard's going, I forget what the trade deadline is, but it'll be that day.
Ken Holland, and this leads perfectly into a statement Ken Holland made recently, which was...
So he was on one of the Sportsnet radio channels, I can't remember which one. I'm not going to rattle off the whole interview verbatim, but the one thing he said that was deeply concerning was he's still not sure what Detroit's going to be at the deadline. Whether they're going to be I don't think he mentioned buyer, but whether they're going to be a seller or stand pat, or maybe they end up buying because they think they have some shot, because I think they're only 4 points of a playoff spot right now, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, no matter how hot Detroit gets over the next couple weeks, months, whatever metric you want to look at, they should absolutely not be doing anything other than selling this deadline. Because I know I've talked about this previous years on the podcast, and I still stand by my stance. Unless you are a top 4 to 5 team in your conference, sell. Sell. Because unless you have a realistic chance at winning the cup, you might as well improve your odds for next year. Like, sure, there might be the odd team that comes up from a 6th, 7th, 8th seed because their goalie gets hot. Well, guess what? If you trade a second-line winger and your goalie gets hot in the first round of the playoffs, well, that second-line winger probably wasn't making a difference anyway if your goalie's just carrying you. Sell. So if you're a team right now that's currently sitting in 12th place in the Eastern Conference, now 3 points out of a playoff spot, you sell. And that being said, it's the 3 points out of a playoff spot, but they would have to leapfrog 4 teams to get in there. And they are also currently tied with Ottawa. Florida's 2 points back with 2 games in hand. Philadelphia's 3 points back with 2 games in hand. And New Jersey's 5 points back with 3 games in hand. So every team behind them outside of Ottawa has a better winning percentage. So, yeah. And again, we look at the underlying numbers, yada, yada, yada. Detroit's going to get a very high draft pick. They are not going to challenge for a playoff spot. To branch off what Ryan said, start selling everybody. Now, I don't care. Sell, and you can say, well, if we trade Jimmy Howard now, what are we going to do? We can't play Jonathan Burney every game. It's not the best example in the world, but Hari Satchery was up with Florida for a handful of games last year when Luongo and Reimer were hurt, and he did fine. And he's in the Red Wings system right now. He's the starter in Grand Rapids. He's already proven he can fill in as a stopgap NHL goaltender. It's fine. We bring up Caden Fulcher from the ECHL, him and Rebar, play in Grand Rapids. It's fine. We have a logjam on the blue line anyway that's only been alleviated because by some fluke, chance, and some bad luck, there's a defenseman perpetually injured. Dennis Cholowski is now averaging the 5th or 6th most ice time per game amongst all Red Wings defensemen. Phillip Roenick is absolutely torching the AHL right now. And I do mean torching. Like, he had an 8 or 9 game point streak, and he's had like 14 points in that stretch, couple game winners. Joe Hickett's should have been up all year. Sulak probably isn't the guy to be up this year, but sooner than later. Nick Jensen is the definition, like, as a hockey player, he is the hockey player equivalent of the piece of dry toast. He doesn't cast strong feelings one way or another, and he doesn't cast strong impact on the game one way or another. But teams like a mobile right shot defenseman, like Toronto, it's so asinine. Like, I keep trying to back up Holland, but then I keep looking at stuff he says, and I see stuff like this, and I'm like, oh god, I'm going to eat my words. I can feel it coming.
This isn't a Brad, like, I told you so moment, because, like, you just said you knew.
Yeah, I cannot fault Holland for anything, because he hasn't done anything stupid yet. So I'm not going to rip him on the maybes, because we don't know if Jimmy Howard has a good offer. We don't know if Nick Jensen has a good offer. We don't know if he's even talked to teams. If he hasn't talked to teams, then I would rip him. But until he does or does not make a stupid move before the deadline, I'm going to not jump on the guy. But if we go through the trade deadline, and after the trade deadline, Jimmy Howard, Nick Jensen, and Gus Nyquist are all still Red Wings, then I'm going to rip him.
And this is the kind of stuff that makes me feel like I'm pulling my hair out and talking to, like, I'm living in crazy town every time people think that, like, Ken Holland will all of a sudden do this 180. We toyed with the idea when that proverbial green light kept being brought up, and you finally got the green light to rebuild, and we thought maybe it was the higher ups, the ownership, that was holding him back from doing so. And I just had this fear that maybe not. If Ken Holland was so good at enacting a plan, or developing a team without the rebuild, without the the true teardown, and he was always about, if you have to rebuild, it's a retool on the fly, and you can always make it work, and that's how you get in the hole that you're in now. This is just him as a general manager, and the fact that he's making these comments now, after he's gone on record by saying this team is in a rebuild. Why? Just because they're on a short heater? Like, you can't possibly misconstrue this as a successful team. There are 4 teams right now ahead of Detroit between them and a wild card spot, and that list is only going to get larger. You think that if he thinks that Detroit is realistically going to leapfrog 5 teams, 6, even if it's 4 teams, it's not happening. And on the off chance that they do, what are the odds that this team, having spent resources and assets to try and script their way into the playoffs, is going to do anything more than win maybe 1 game? Why is that worth it? Why is it worth just getting torched in the first round by a way better team? If you want to play Tampa Bay or Toronto in the first round of the playoffs, be my guest. But that will go terribly, I assure you.
So for reference, right now, Tampa Bay is 23-7-1 with 47 points. The next closest team in the NHL is 6 points behind them. That's who you would get in the first round right now. It's not. I don't think the question is, do the Red Wings win a game in that series? The question is, do they score a goal?
It's
because, my God, Tampa, I didn't realize just how much they were clowning teams this year till I'm looking at the standings right now, and they are just dummying the league. It's Calgary's leading the Western Conference at 19-9-2, and they're 7 points behind Tampa.
how stupid is that? This team is not going to be competitive. I get that sometimes you want to mask your intentions or your comments or things that are said publicly aren't always, exactly what is going on behind the scenes. If a reporter asks you, Ken Holland, a question about being a buyer or a seller at the deadline, and your answer isn't, this team isn't we're still in a rebuild phase. We're not going to be buying. And standing pat isn't really an option. We have to make moves to set ourselves up for the future. Then it's just wrong. It's just wrong. It's the wrong take. It's the wrong outlook. Yes, you could say he was just being deceptive, or yes, you could say it's not good for team morale to say we're going to be sellers. How many times have we seen Ken Holland say this and have that not actually be the case? I have full trust in the fact that Ken Holland is not going to move the pieces he should move. Is going to hang on too long and is potentially going to miss some great opportunities to A, help the draft pick for next year, and B, attain assets for the rebuild. This team is still in a rebuild. I'm sorry, it's fantastic to see Larkin do amazing. It's wonderful to see the team, genuinely, the rivalry with Colorado, even some of the fights, again, like Brad said, we're not anti-fighting, we're not anti-stars fighting all the time. That all has been amazing to see, but this team is still in a rebuild. Ken Holland cannot be treating it any other way. This is why I'm such an advocate for love Holland for what he's done for Detroit. He's a legend in the organization. He'll go down in history. He'll be in the Hockey Hall of Fame one day. Amazing, amazing, amazing. It's time for him to go. His mentality has not switched enough. He's made a few tweaks that in my mind are more common sense moves than these radical shifts and brilliant takes as a GM. He's made a few tweaks, but he has not made the fundamental shift in the way he manages this team to inspire any confidence in the outlook moving forward.
On a happier note, I was actually just looking, while I was looking at the standings here, I noticed something. The Los Angeles Kings are no longer dead last in the entire NHL.
Hey, that's great.
Oh my God, is Chicago bad?
Yeah, Chicago's not great.
9-16-5. They have won 9 out of 30 games. Oh.
Yep.
Which I want to be happy about, but I don't know if I could stomach Jack Hughes in Chicago. They need to start stringing together some wins here.
Jack Hughes in Chicago would be the only thing that would have been worse would have been Connor McDavid in Chicago.
Can you imagine Jack Hughes and Patrick Kane on the same line?
Nope. Don't care to at all, Brad. Jack Hughes goes to Chicago. They make some moves. All of a sudden, Panarin's back there. There's actually been a lot of chatter about that. Panarin back in Chicago. If only they had him before. So a point about Ken Holland that segues into our next topic pretty well is that there's been a lot of chatter about the popular idea that Ken Holland will be the GM in Seattle eventually. And because they're not starting until 2021, they now have a lot of time to kind of build these things up. There's no rush to get that GM in. There's no rush to pick a team name or a jersey, even though we all know it's going to be the Rain City Bitch Pigeons. And the timing is just so perfect. Ken Holland has, 2 years left on his contract?
Yes, I believe so.
Yzerman is not touchable for the rest of this season because that's the length of his contract with Tampa Bay because he's going to be just an advisor with them. He's already in Detroit. He's already told other teams that he's not interested. For example, Philly wanted to talk to him for the GM role. He said, thank you, but no thank you. Everyone knows, it's a pretty open secret, he wants to be back in Detroit now. Ken Holland either steps aside early or stays on at GM for the final 2 years. Steve Yzerman steps on in an exec role for Detroit. Holland leaves to Seattle when it's time. Yzerman steps into the GM role. It just is too perfect. I would literally bet my money on this.
Ken Holland's been in the Detroit organization for 30 years. If we're talking about the Steve Yzerman wants to come to Detroit because it's home, well, this is home for Kenny too. He's been here for 30 years.
Yeah, but has the clock not run out? Has it not even... Is there a chance that this all has seeped into him and his perception? Like, he has to think about his legacy at some point. People were calling for, his chair. They wanted him fired for the past few years. He got that contract. He legitimately barely scraped out that contract.
Oh yeah, he went into his last year on the last contract without the new one. It didn't get signed until I think it was halfway through the season or something like that. But
it was like February.
Man, I don't know. If I'm Ken Holland, I'm his age, and I've been here for 30 years. I don't know if I could up and move my family across the continent to go into a team. Like, as fun as it might be to build a team from scratch from expansion, that's not a small role. That's not an easy role. He would have the toughest job in the entire NHL.
But that's what he wants. That's why he stayed on as a GM. He has no interest in stopping anytime soon. But he's kind of like George R.R. Martin to himself, where he's like, for example, like the writer of Game of Thrones, that series, the last two books, the last book was due like 8 years ago or something stupid like that, and it's just not coming out because he's tied himself into so many plot holes that he literally can't write his way out of. Ken Holland's done the same with this team. He's signed so many terrible contracts, and the team is positioned so poorly that he can't, like, he's stuck. So many times have we said, like, how many times have we said, this would be great, or this would be great, or this would be great, or it would have been awesome if that would have happened, but there's literally nothing else Ken Holland could have done. And who put him there? Ken Holland. Why not step into a blank slate? You have all the control you want. You want to keep GMing. You want to make an impact. It's the capstone to his career. Move out there for the last 5, 10, however many years of your career. That is your capstone. It's a blank slate. You get to walk away from this mess that you created. Preserve your legacy as a Red Wings legend. The team will look favorable. Even fans who are calling for him to not be the GM anymore, like myself, will still look back fondly as to what he did for what will go down as, or what is one of the greatest sports franchises in history, and that's all because of his work. Why not preserve that legacy and go put that capstone on your career? It just makes too much sense. Yes, it's not home, but he is from the Vancouver area, or like, it's not completely unfamiliar to him. It's not unheard of for people. There's in my full-time job, someone really high up in my institution came from across. It's funny, actually came from the West Coast of Canada to step into. Oh, I'm getting a phone call, and that's going to come loudly over my laptop. Came over to our side of the world to put a capstone on her career and make an impact on essentially not a blank slate, but an area of our institution that's going to grow rapidly. It's not uncommon. Ken Holland has there's a lot to be gained here in my mind. This is all very rose-colored glasses for me, I know, but...
This is true, but again, from a legacy standpoint, you could argue this is the first rebuild he's ever attempted in his entire tenure. He's never done this before. He doesn't know if this is going to succeed. Now, take it for what it's worth, but there was an article, I want to say it went up about a week or two ago on The Athletic, where a bunch of The Athletic writers got together, and they basically did a projection of what are the NHL standings going to look like. I can't remember if it was 3 years out or 5 years out, but they basically looked at a whole bunch of factors around the team currently, cap situation, prospect pool, a couple other things, yada, 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 and then did a ranking, NHL teams 1 through 32, that Seattle was going to be in. What should the NHL standings look like? And they projected Detroit 11th. Detroit was in a pretty good spot to be really good in 3 to 5 years. And again, this wasn't just Red Wings Raiders. This was everybody. So, again, for all the criticisms he does, Detroit, in terms of a rebuild, is in a pretty good spot right now. And they're in line for a top 10 pick this year, probably again next year. That's 2 more huge assets to add to an already very stacked prospect system. If Ken Holland wants a true legacy piece, see this rebuild through, turn Detroit into contenders again. Even if it's only for the next 1 more year after this as a GM and then step into a president role like what Shanahan's doing with Toronto or something like that and let Yzerman be the GM, whatever it might be. But if he stays within the organization, man, how could you not just heap all the praise on him if he pulls that off?
I think that the things that have gone right in this rebuild have gone right on the whole, in spite of his actions. Genuinely, I believe that. He's done some things right that, yes, should be praised, but in my mind, any competent GM should do it. Flipping assets for picks, yes. Things he should be praised for on top of that, like the return on some of those, like the charge rate is fantastic.
No, I get that. I get what you're saying, but my point isn't arguing whether or not he's been doing a great job. My point is, if I'm Ken Holland and I'm looking at what's going to have a bigger impact on my legacy, it would be successfully turning the one organization I've worked for around into true contenders again. That would be more of my stamp. This is my team. This is what I did. I brought them down, but then I brought them back. We're making deep runs in the playoffs. I'm calling it a day. Have a good one, everyone.
Are you, as a Red Wings fan, willing to take the risk that he'd be able to turn it around when he's literally never done that before?
Oh God, I would much rather Steve Yzerman in there. But
right?
But again, I'm pretending I'm Ken
if you're
Holland.
pretending Ken Holland.
What would be a greater impact on my legacy to me?
I know that's the tough part, because I think objectively you're right.
Yeah.
Ken Holland will think, like, obviously he'd prefer that things are gold and shiny in Detroit, 100%. It's just hard to not look at it from the lens of a fan, or even like whatever you want to call us, media. It's hard to look at it through any lens other than, I don't think he can do it.
No, my perfect scenario is still Yzerman's contract expires with Tampa at the end of the year. Yzerman takes over as GM. Holland goes into some sort of president, advisory, whatever role you want. So he's still there in Stevie's ear. He's still got an imprint, but Stevie's making the decisions.
For sure.
That's what I want. I don't want, again, for the reasons you mentioned earlier, despite all his flaws over the last 5 years, some of the moves he's made, the Advocator contract, the Helm contract, we're all going to look back on Holland fondly.
100%.
I love Kenny Holland. I don't want to see him go to Seattle. That's just me being a fan now. I don't want him out of the organization. I just want Stevie calling the shots. I want this team to turn around. I want Holland to be there when Red Wings are contenders again, to bask in whether he's made every perfect move or not. He's the reason we had the extra pick to get Joe Veleno. He's the reason we had the extra pick to get Jonathan Berggren. He's the reason we've got the prospect pool we've got right now. And he's the reason we've got Dylan Larkin on a great contract, why Andres Athanasiou's on a good contract. Like, he's done positive things, and again, I want him to see it through and be like, okay, here we go. The 2022 Stanley Cup champions, Larkin lifts the trophy, hands it to Jack Hughes, who hands it to whoever the hell, Joel Quenneville, who hands it to Stevie, who hands it to Kenny. It's great. This is what I want. This is my future.
For the first time in a long time, I agree wholeheartedly with the Ken Holland take of yours. I'm 100% on board with what you just said. And another point, which leads into our last topic before maybe overtime. You don't want someone who used to be the driver of your organization leaving to an expansion team when that expansion team gets to pick one of your players soon.
Yeah.
You do not want want that competition out there.
Hold on. Well, this is the one argument I might have for wanting Kenny to leave, because he just might take Adelaide.
Oh, well, you know what Washington State needs more? Some good old Michigan boys.
Washington's Michigan per 60 is dangerously low right now.
So low. That's why they haven't had an NHL team before. They need more Michigan. You look at states that don't have an NHL team. All have one thing in common. Very few Michigan. Very few Michigan there. Very little Michigan. The expansion lists.
Okay.
You said you want to dive back into that.
Yeah, so when we were talking about, on the last episode, the expansion list, we were talking about it the day that Seattle got announced, and obviously we didn't have a deep dive into exactly how the rules were, because we couldn't remember from the Vegas expansion draft all the little caveats and catches and yada yada yada. So over the last few days, all of that has been clarified. So now we can talk firmly. So Zadina, there's a loophole with him that Anthony Mantha got burned by in the last one that we forgot about. So this does count as a pro season for Phillip Zadina. But because he's under the age of 20, because that's a stipulation for some reason, but hey, it works in Detroit's favor, so I'm not complaining. If he plays 9 games or less in the NHL this season, so his entry-level contract gets deferred, he's exempt.
That is the best reasoning for holding Zadina.
Yeah, I'm full. Call him up at game 73 now, and not a moment before. Like, you can keep an expansion slot and slide his ELC. And again, it's not like he's dominating Grand Rapids this year, so quite honestly, from a development standpoint, there's not even really a good reason to bring him up this year either. So
That is a bet. Yeah.
yeah, so if he plays, so as far as the whole ELC thing we were talking about before, how it didn't matter that much, well, for this reason now it matters a lot. Because if he plays 10 games, he has to take up a protection slot. The other caveat that we didn't even know is because when you go to Cap Friendly and you look up Franz Nielsen's name, you see the NMC next to his name. That clause is expired before the expansion draft, and it's just a limited no trade clause.
Huh.
So he does not have to be protected.
So what you're telling me is if Detroit plays this right with Zadina, has some foresight, they are golden for the expansion.
They could literally actually put Justin Navigator on their protection list and not really affect the team in any negative way.
So far.
So far,
Lots going to happen between now
There's
and
2 summers now.
Yeah.
If Ken Holland doesn't sign at least one significant free agent in the next 2 summers, I will be shocked. But this is very relevant because if you do sign that, because right now, the list we were going through, when we thought Nielsen had to be protected and we thought Zadina had to be protected, that would have left Svechnikov exposed. Now you can protect Svechnikov, if you play your cards right, and another forward. Because Joe Valendo's exempt, Jonathan Berggren's exempt, anybody they draft this year is exempt. There's no way ifs, ands, or buts about it. There was, however, a caveat where it looks like Gustav Lindstrom will have to be protected.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I forget reading exactly that was actually in Max Bultman's article that he put out today, but it looks like Lindstrom might have to be protected. Again, he's a good prospect, but he's not like...
If he goes, like, there will be teams in worse situations.
Oh, probably 28 teams in worse situations if he's the one that goes. And Detroit doesn't have a goalie under contract at that point right now, so we don't know who it is. So right now, Detroit might be sitting, as far as the expansion draft goes, in a better position than any team in the league. Honestly, because if they don't play Zadina 10 games and they don't have to protect Nielsen, they have right now, they can protect their entire young core forwards, have a free agent forward that they can protect as well if it's like, say they sign a Matt Duchene this summer or whoever, and they're fine. They have no significant forwards left unprotected. Right now, their protection list on defense is Cholowski, Roenick, and then who the hell ever. You could go DeKaiser, you could go Sulak, Hicketts, Lindstrom, Sariardi, it doesn't matter. And again, if you lose any one of them, it's not franchise changing. So, cards played right here. Detroit looks like they caught a couple of very significant breaks.
I'm so happy Ken Holland kicked his no trade clause or no movement clause habit early enough for this to actually help. Yeah. Legitimately, like Ken Holland of old or Red Wings of old would have been in a very bad spot here. Yeah. And it did put them in a mild bind. Things turned out okay, but it did put them in a mild bind at the previous expansion. So, just one note. Please, if you're the league, nothing past 32. 32 is a perfect number. I know we said that last time, but just 32. Like, I think 30 would have been fine, but 32, like, that's great. No more after that.
Yep, and then don't change the playoff system with it. Just leave it be.
So we are going to take this time now to head over to Overtime. Overtime is a segment where we take questions from fans and listeners and chat about them on the show. They can be hockey related or anything but, as they often are. We're going to start off with Patreon, where all of our patrons and supporters there get their comments read out every episode on air, guaranteed, as our way of saying thank you for supporting the show. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon patron, patreon.com/wingedwheelpodcast. Check that out. We're going to start with Garrett TV. He says, "Hey guys, Ryan, thanks for faithfully reading my stupidly long comment last week. I won't do that to you guys again. My question is, what can we do better in center ice to help our zone exits? Obviously, Blashill's system is questionable and our D doesn't move the puck well, but it's in their defense, there's often little place to go with it. It just seems like opponents' forecheck is remarkably effective against us. Is that a weakness of the Blashill way, or am I just grasping at straws to explain bad players in the bad system? Yeah. Also, Angry Larkin is best Larkin. Let's go Red Wings."
It's both.
It's a combination of, yeah.
Yeah, but it's mostly the system because, man, it was even more horrendous watching when we were actually at the LCA this year watching the game. But Blashill's breakout, what he likes to do is spread the team out. So you'll see a winger at the far blue line. You'll see the other winger at the opposite end of the ice somewhere in the neutral zone. Generally not skating, which is a bad idea on the breakout. One forward will come back in, circle one way. The other defenseman will kind of be the option outlet on the other side. So basically, Blashill's breakout is a 3-person breakout where he has 2 outlets for a dump and chase if need be. And again, we've beat it to death. Dump and chase doesn't work in today's NHL, so that's just kind of the fallback. But again, the problem is when you're trying to run a 3-person breakout against a team of 5 players, you're not getting clean breakouts. You have the best breakouts are the ones where you can see the team coming down ice as a unit. All 5 guys are in motion. You can send a guy, 1 guy, not 2, but you can send 1 guy up the ice to kind of spread the other team out, so you have to keep them honest, where if you have a guy on the far blue line, their defense can't come up into the neutral zone without running. But you have to be running him in a cross route against along the blue line. He can't just be stationary there as a tip-in outlet. And you have to have options on your breakout. It can't be, okay, guy on the right's covered, not going to put it there. Okay, I'm going to look at the left. Okay, that guy's covered, not going to put it there. Crap.
The Red Wings breakout also suffers from a contingent of forwards who are actually, quite speedy and able to handle the puck. They don't adjust well to the slow, poorly positioned, poor decision making, bad first pass defensemen that are supposed to be running this breakout. If everyone everyone including Mike Green is so bad at this, the Red Wings forwards aren't yet experienced enough or literally can't bring themselves down or slow themselves down enough to get in the right position to correct for that. Because I don't think you can correct for how bad this breakout is sometimes. I don't think there's a position on the ice that would make sense for them. If they did come so far down or they did try to find that open ice to make it so simple for that pass to happen, they'd put themselves in dangerous spots in the neutral zone that would make it, like Brad mentioned, extremely easy to defend against. It starts and stops with the poor foot speed, the poor puck handling, the poor decision making of the Red Wings defense. That's a systems thing, but I think that's also a personnel thing. There's only so much you can correct for.
It is, because right now the Red Wings have most successful defenseman in terms of percentage of successful breakouts is Dennis Cholowski, which there's something positive and negative to be said about your best puck-moving defenseman being 20 years old. When Dom put that article out, not that I haven't been watching every game, but I really wanted to pay close attention to what is Cholowski doing differently from the rest of them, just because it's not particularly close. He's the most successful of the group by a lot. His successful breakouts are generally when he regroups. He's the only defenseman on the team that seems to be patient with the puck when exiting the zone. He'll come around the net, he'll skate up, he'll survey his options. If he doesn't like anything, he circles back. Or he'll put it over to his defense partner, go back behind the net, his defense partner gives it back to him, and they try again. And it's not a very... It sounds like it wouldn't be the most effective thing in the world, but when you circle back like that, everybody in the neutral zone isn't standing still. They're all moving, doing things, right? The defense and the wingers might change sides, whatever it is. You create a little bit of chaos. And when you create a little bit of chaos, generally there's a mistake somewhere. Like some guy will blow a coverage, some guy will have a bad gap. If Larkin regroups with Cholowski, all of a sudden their winger or whoever was supposed to have him just missed a step. Now he's got that outlet that he didn't have on the same play last time. So Cholowski's still working in the same bad system, but he's counteracting it by saying, well, I'm just going to circle back as many times as I need to until something opens up.
Dan Bell says, hey gents, good to see the guys standing up for each other. Always enjoy scrappy games. Just really, really, really hope the good run of form doesn't mean a Blash extension. Hopefully Holland will go to the Seattle Lattes. Stevie will come home and his first action will be to oust the meme king. All will be right in Red Wing land. Hope all is well, guys. Cheers. Brandon Biesinger says, hello friends, has Nielsen been actually good this year? He's got 18 points, and while he's mostly not noticeable on the ice, that means he's not doing anything too poorly. Maybe my standards for good have just dropped. I don't know. He hasn't been bad, but he's just not living up to his contract.
He's been a good third-line center that we've been playing on the second line.
Yeah, he makes about $1 million too much per year, and he's signed on for about 3 years too long.
Yeah.
Not related to hockey, have you guys ever been to Frankenmuth? I know we get a lot of tourists, especially around Christmas time. If you ever do come, let me know. I'll buy you a drink. Thanks as always, go Wings. Really? I haven't been, but I really want to go.
I've never heard of this place.
It's like a shopping getaway in Michigan. And it's very big on Christmas.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So now is like the hot time to go to Frankenmuth. Like you'll see a lot of families do like a Frankenmuth weekend kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
Our Windsor listeners will know more because like they'll cross the border and go in.
I hate shopping, so.
Yeah, I put headphones in when I go to the mall so people don't bug me.
They're not even plugged into anything.
No, they're just mostly not. Hey guys, so the morning of the Avs game last weekend, I woke up to the greatest text ever from my best friend. Want to go to the Wings game tonight? I also previously had tickets to last night's game versus the Isles. Last night at the game in the third, with about 10 minutes left, the Wings tried to dump and chase about 7 times in a row and failed every time. And I said, guarantee they try the dump and chase again. And the guy sitting in front of me, who had never talked to me before, just looked up at me and both just started laughing as N once again dumped the puck in and unsuccessfully chased after it. No question this week, just thought I would share this with you guys. Cheers. P.S. The next time you're at the LCA, you have to try this mac and cheese place they have. It's mac and cheese with pulled pork on it, smothered with barbecue sauce. It was amazing, or it is awesome. It made me question everything I thought I knew about gourmet dining and, more importantly, my life. The LCA has amazing food, and I cannot wait to try that.
I'm excited to try it, but at the same time, I've eaten so many awful things for my body this weekend. I feel tremendously sick at the moment, so forgive me for not getting excited over it at the moment right now. I went way too big a dinner, 2 Christmas parties last night, and then I was so not hungry when I woke up this morning. I had a small piece of toast and didn't eat anything till 6 o'clock when I had mall Chinese food. So, yeah, my insides are rotting right now.
Oh yeah, mine too. My Mel and I had a big Christmas party last night with all of our friends. So this was one where like you don't buy light beer. You go for the 3-liter box of wine. Yeah. Oh God, I feel like I've been kicked in the chest from the inside and out. It was Mel, bless her, made me. I offered her $100,000 to make me breakfast. She did it for free, funny enough, and I had about 1 hash brown and 4 pieces of bacon, and I wanted to eat more, but it's all I could possibly stomach. I would kill for that mac and cheese right now, though. Joe Caboose 119Z Falzone says, so Larkin and Nyquist are absolute animals together. Who would have guessed when they're with Mantha, they are actually one of the best lines in the NHL, according to Sean at Charting Hockey. Great follow, by the way.
Did I not say that on a few podcasts? I think I did. But to be fair, I got my info from Sean at Charting Hockey. So,
do you see Veleno starting at center or wing next year in the Wings? Seems like he could be the exception where he jumps to the middle right away. I tend to agree with that.
I agree. He's defensively responsible and skates like the wind. If you have those two things in your repertoire before you get to the NHL, you can jump in as a center.
And then he says, is this Larkin's breakout year yet? Like Scheifele, he seems to be a bit of a late bloomer, but he's getting a lot more recognition around the league. I think this is his year where he steps into the spotlight around the league, yeah. Taylor Hunter says, hey guys, if any player from the Red Wings was an office character, who would they be? For example, I can't help but see Bertuzzi being Dwight. Secondly, any thoughts on Abdelkader's new book? He has a new book?
What?
Oh, I had no idea.
Well, that explains what he's doing instead of practicing how to play hockey.
Red Wings office characters.
I do not watch The Office, so this is all you, champ.
Oh, man, you just lost a lot of fandom. Within the Winged Wheel podcast fandom, you just lost a lot of people. I gained 3 of your followers. The rest went to Evan.
That's fine. Next week, can someone ask which about Brooklyn Nine-Nine characters for Red Wings?
Oh, that's a good one.
Then I'll jump in.
Yeah. Creed. I think the funniest one would be trying to find out who Creed is. I want to think on this. I want to get this right. Maybe we'll come back to this next week because I really think like there's a lot to be had here. Jimmy Howard is definitely Jim. Just kind of like looking at the office or looking at the camera saying, "Are you seeing the shit that I deal with?" That's like the side glances, breaking the through. 100%. That's Jimmy Howard.
Doesn't Jim have a girlfriend on that show? Who'd be Jimmy Howard's significant other on the team?
Ooh, that's good. Who's the Pam?
The only competent defenseman, Cholowski.
Yeah, I was going to say Cholowski. Scenario question from Antonio. Any Red Wing from history must go toe-to-toe with another Red Wing for the title of heavyweight champion of the world. Who's fighting and who's winning? It has to be Probert versus Kocher.
It's Probert for sure. If we're talking... Oh, God. Would it be too out there to say Probert versus Howe?
No, that's true.
Because Howe was not a gentle hockey player.
No, Howe is the prototypical hockey like elbows in your face guy.
Gordie Howe hat trick, goal, assist, fight. Although I think he only did that a few times in his career, to be fair. But
twice, I think.
Yeah,
2 or 3. I think Probert comes out ahead.
Oh,
Man
Probert.
was an animal.
Probert's the king.
Man was an absolute animal. just was the right mix of like, you know, a big guy that you don't want to mess with to start, but just fought like a madman. Connor Jager says, "Hey guys, I was curious if you have any secondary teams that you follow / root for. Obviously the Wings take priority over everyone else, but sometimes it's fun to have secondary teams to watch. For me, I really enjoy watching the Jets and Sharks and find myself cheering when they score, except against the Wings, of course. Have a great week, guys."
Well, like I proclaimed going way back to 2 summers ago, I'm all in on the Vegas bandwagon for the Western Conference, so still going for them. Outside of that, I generally tend to follow players I like and teams I find fun to watch, so I've been watching a lot of Winnipeg. I've been watching a lot of Connor McDavid. Trying to think what other teams I find myself flipping on the TV for quite often. Those are the 2 primary ones.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with that.
In terms of who I watch, oftentimes it's just people, like, whoever the best team is. So I'll try to catch a Toronto game or a Tampa Bay game at any point that I can. I won't actively root for them. I don't really actively root for anyone other than the Red Wings. I do like seeing, well, it's hard. Like, if a team from the West that was never a rival with Detroit and has the kind of personnel, like the management, and they've made some good moves. Like, I'll always root for the Coyotes because I really like the way John Shaka runs that team. John Shaka? Yeah, okay. Sometimes I get mixed up. I like the way he runs that team, and I always want to see the underdog win. But it's, in general, I just like to watch good hockey. Justin Klinsky says, "Giving time for Ryan to read ahead. While working last Sunday night, I suffered a lovely injury. I had a pallet jack with a load of over 700 pounds go over my left foot and trapped it, and then I had to push it over my foot to free it. Oh my god. As a result, I broke 2 toes in 3 different spots. Ugh. This is the first time I ever broke anything, so I guess I did in style. My god, man, you're lucky you didn't lose your toes. Hope you get some nice workers' comp from that." Quick hits. Larkin should never be in a fight. If he breaks his hand or worse, then the season can be as good as done. Good take, Justin. We're playing 2 players that fit this role. Oh my god, Justin, you're on a roll. Also, there are rumors of Holland taking the Seattle GM job, like the Bills and Lions making the playoffs. I'll believe it when I see it. Go Pack, go. Oh, I can't believe you just made me say that on air. I didn't see it ahead of time. They won today. They got rid of McCarthy and they won today. How did your Bills do, Brad?
Bite me.
Rowan says, "Curious to get your take on fighting given the last few games. Glad we covered that. For a league who is against hits to the head, and rightly so, there seems to be a very lax attitude to fighting where players' sole objective is to punch their combatant in the head. Hockey seems to be one of the only team sports that I can think of where it's condoned / acceptable. As a comparison, I grew up playing rugby, and punching an opposition player typically gets you sent from the field and banned for a few weeks. This is the standard at international level as well. Being a contact sport like hockey, though, there are other ways to exact a bit of a square up when opposition players need one. Will fighting always be a part of hockey? I think fighting eventually will go, as Ron McLean said, the way of the dodo. I do think it has a place in the game, though. That's my opinion.
Yeah, there is a little bit to be said for policing the game because you don't want a guy like Tom Wilson running around out there doing whatever he wants and not having to answer for anything other than suspensions. There is something to be said about having, I don't know, who's a big scary guy that can actually play hockey? There is something to be said, like as Zdeno Chara running around on the ice, and you don't want to take a shot at Bergeron for fear that Chara might be on the ice and remove your limbs from your body at the moment of impact. So, I like fighting in the game. I hate staged fights, and I hate guys who have no other purpose on the ice but fighting. But I don't think you can take fighting out of hockey. But I agree. I don't think it'll be here. No. 10 years from now, it'll be on its way out.
I do think that, like, what you're saying is right. And as someone who, like, I was a biomed student, I think we've uncovered about 1% of the atrocity that is brain injury in sport, especially with youth. It is something we have to pay more mind to. And then once that discovery is enough to be sufficient for society making an informed decision, and professional sports making an informed decision, they're then going to come to the moral and ethical question of, okay, we know this is what it is. It's all out there. Here are the protections we can offer. How much are we willing to alter this sport at the professional level? Youth level, 100% for sure. But at some point, competitive hockey has to be played for players to develop. I don't know. There's a wall and I can't see past it. I don't know how that conversation will go. It's not like there's going to be one forum or panel. It's going to be messy. The NFL is going to be the first ones to have to go through it. They kind of are right now. But we can't keep putting holes in kids' brains for the sake of sport. As much as I value sport in society, there has to be some kind of shift. And I think if you're talking about one of the biggest changes from now to 50 years from now when we're, you know, at retirement age or you know, in the later years of our life, I think one of the biggest changes in society is how professional sports are going to be treated.
Yeah, if you get a kid with too many concussions, that's how you end up with me.
Yeah, same. I like legitimately, it's not an exaggeration. I had, I think, what was a normal amount of concussions for someone who played hockey competitively from when they were 3.5 to, you know, 17 years old. That's not a terribly long time. To people play well after that. I can't look at anything that gyrates. Like if I go to an amusement park, anything that spins, I can't even look at it without wanting to throw up. And it used to be that way. My sensitivity to concussions is... I had someone throw, like... Someone who wasn't a baseball player, they essentially lobbed a softball, and it hit me in like the back of the head and neck area. Wasn't hard, didn't have a bruise, didn't have a welt, walked it off. The next day I was having a conversation, I was like, why can't I focus? Like it just felt very off, and it kind of felt a little nauseous. I got concussed off a little bump from a softball. Like it changes you, and it's not okay.
When I was a kid, I suffered from pretty frequent severe migraines. Like actual migraines, not the migraines Pam from accounting claims to have every other Wednesday. Like a true dark room throwing up migraine. I suffered with those till I was 15. Would get about one a month. Suffered a major concussion when I was 15 playing hockey. Memory loss a week leading up to the game. I was out of hockey. Go figure. They say, you know, times change. I was out of hockey for 3 months after a major concussion. That was it. Haven't had a migraine since. So I was kind of like, hey, fix me. But then I'm also like, hey, I got hit hard enough, something shifted in my brain. That can't be good.
Yeah. We have time for a few comments from our Reddit thread. We'll start with Jacques Strap says, Is the league getting soft? It feels like we're under the microscope ever since the Bertuzzi incident. I agree with the league for the suspension, but now people are calling for Cronwall's career after that huge hit. Yeah, everyone needs to chill out. I don't know what it is, the obsession with just like hoarding and like the buzz and hive mind mentality of like anti-Detroit, but like this isn't new stuff. Calling for Bertuzzi to die or Cronwall to just retire, like if it hits dirty, penalize it, suspend, whatever. But if it's just a big hit and you don't like it, like don't be soft about it.
Wojtowski's hit on Krejci was bigger.
It was. People should have been more up in arms about that.
But they were both is primary point of contact the head? No. Then did the player see it coming? Yes. Then settle down.
Yeah.
If your shoulder hits the opponent's chest, that's a clean hit every single time unless you jump into it. But again, if you're jumping, odds are you're not catching him in the chest. So it's, if you're hitting him from behind, if you're hitting him in the head, okay, cool. There's a lot of debates to be had there. Shoulder to chest or ass to waist, you're fine.
Ando772 says, here's a question I posed. The way we've been playing with this young core group leading the way, if we still had this setup man like Zetterberg playing this season, would we be sitting in the wild card right now? No, but we'd be closer.
Yeah.
Now, by the looks, we're turning the LCA into a hell of a team to come play hockey. Vintage Detroit bringing back the Joe Field. The crowd just needs to get back into it, and we're back. I can't believe people on Reddit yesterday were soaking. That's a typo, I think, about the heat we were bringing. Oh, they're probably just like angry about it. Keep up the great work as always, and the YouTube vids are the way to go. Thank you, appreciate that. Again, like the sentiment and the feeling of the fans being excited is like that's something that's nice to see back again. It's people enjoying a bad hockey team the way they're supposed to, finding fun and finding engagement. I have an ongoing conversation with Adam Lascaris, and his point was, why are people so up in arms about the Bertuzzi incident or anything like that when, like, in reality, you know the season's not going to matter. I'm like, right, you're not wrong, but the fans have to have something to engage with. You can't have a bad team and just be passive about it, because that's how your love for the game goes away. You want the fans to be engaged throughout it, and if they can be engaged and less angry, all the better in my mind. Coltron57 says, not a question, but damn do I love seeing Cronwall go balls out every night, letting someone up. Seems like he knows it's his last ride and doesn't care about staying hockey healthy, so he's using up what he has left in the tank. The hitting and fighting when it's not Larkin or Mantha has made for a damn enjoyable season thus far. I absolutely agree. I owe Cronwall an apology because I didn't think he had this in him. This is like the best last season we could have asked for.
Oh, he's still not good, but he's at least, like you said, he's throwing it out there. Let's go. And I respect it. I'm down with that fun.
DK Silver Wine says, so Cronwall's again, twice in 1 week, and has entered the top 3 scoring defensemen of all time for the Wings. He's one of my all-time favorite players. I've always been impressed with his demeanor on and off the ice, but his ability to find that hit is something else. Just curious what your thoughts are on Cronwall, and his career as a Wing. Keep up the good work, boys. Thanks to you, I've actually been following hockey in the Wings as opposed to just being a fan. Also, Cronwall is better looking than Z. Fight me. Appreciate the support.
Man, Cronwall's 3rd?
That is he really?
Wow, I would have not guessed that. But then again, to be fair, you look at all the Red Wings' best defensemen, most of them didn't spend their whole careers with Detroit, so...
No.
Yeah,
Chelios came over late.
Yeah, Chelios was like in his 30s when he came over. Rafalski was in his 30s when he came over.
I'm going to look that up because I want to...
Yeah, Vladdy, we all know, didn't get a full career. Red Kelly split his career between Detroit and Toronto. Yeah, I can see that.
Huh.
Wow, good for Connor.
He'll go down in Red Wings history.
Yeah, he won't get his number raised, but like he'll be remembered.
Moving forward, yeah, I get your take on Cronwall. I think he's more traditionally pretty, but I think Zetterberg's more handsome. Mulvda says, Bud's gonna shoot you 2 for softball questions. 1, can we make Dylan captain already? I wish they would just do it.
Yes, please.
He very clearly can weather the storm of being a leader on a bad team. 2, where does Cronwall's latest Cronwalling belong in his lifetime highlight reel?
Oh my god.
That's hard.
That's a question I cannot answer. There's too many. You're asking us to make like a top 100 list here.
No, yeah, we get that'll have to be an episode in and of its own.
Havlat and then every other one.
We have time for a couple more. Pick a number. I'm not going to give you a range because you're not going to pick what I need you to.
Okay.
Pick a number.
72.
Alright, I'm going to go with 7. Phillip Zadina says, is Rasmussen going to be a center or a winger once he matures?
From looking at the way the Red Wings are currently built, winger. You have Valeno coming up, you have Nielsen on for a bunch more years, you have Larkin playing center. You're not going to be asking Rasmussen to play center on the 4th line, so wing. And again, I don't think he skates well enough to be a center at the NHL level, honestly.
I'm going to go down a couple more. Grand Moff Larkin says, I may be too late, but I've been meaning this post since the preseason. You claim that Shulak, I think, was the first Detroit D-man to score on a breakaway. That is false. Luke Firkin-Witkowski scored on a breakaway last year against Nashville. Oh, yeah, well, I guess you're right. We apologize for that erroneous message. Yarvik7 says, keep up the great podcast with the recent success of the team. Is it possible that we should credit Blashill with it?
No.
I'm perplexed. Does it take 3+ years to see coaching get positive results?
No.
If you want instantaneous results, coaching is like that has the most like in the moment impact out of any other position. Legitimately.
Unless you're Chicago right now.
Yeah, unless you're Chicago. And then we have, let's do Siberian Sip says, are we considered a dirty team now? It seems like we have a target on our backs. Yeah, the shift is like the league is very anti-Detroit right now.
We've been and what a coincidence, we've been playing Witkowski every game for like 2 weeks. Just causation. What is it? Correlation doesn't equal causation.
Yeah,
but just throwing it out there.
Just throwing it out there. All right, Brad. We have time for one more. Zadine Apocalypse says, with all the 3rd jerseys being released this season, I couldn't help but hope for a Wings 3rd. I have no idea what they would do for a 3rd, though. If you had to design a Wings 3rd jersey, what would it look like?
Barber Paul!
I would go to the Detroit-Toronto Centennial, or not Centennial Classic, sorry, the Detroit-Toronto Winter Classic as a Big House jersey. I love that jersey so much, my God. That's all we have time for this week. We will see you again for our midweek episode. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'd like to thank everyone, our Patreon patrons. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Our name-level sponsors, Sean Levine, Chad Hiersack, Sky Carcass, Arjun Shankar, Clayton Van Dyken, Langabeer, Derek Shippert, Kalen Wood, Charlie Elkins, Stan Olson, Ryan Lewis, Dan Bell, Hannah Lee. Thank you guys so much. You are who make this show happen. Thank you to all of our listeners. If you want to engage with us, get on Twitter at WingedWheelPod, follow that, and then follow our individual accounts. We love to engage with people on Twitter. We're on there quite a bit. We try to get on and tweet during games as well as much as we can. If you want other ways to support the show, subscribe however you get your podcast. Leave us a rating. Leaving us a rating on iTunes is huge, huge, huge for us. Like, share, favorite, follow us, or like us on Facebook. Do whatever you want to do. Enjoy the show. Always give us feedback. We always want to be better. We're going to take this time to recover Evan from wherever the hell he is this time, and we'll see you in a few days.